Chair and Commissioner Eldred Bonilla,
Present.
Vice Chair and Commissioner Lanez,
Here.
Commissioner Manaska Alcantara, Commissioner Nicole Yearwood,
Here.
Commissioner Ngozi Okaro.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you for those commissioners who are here present, and we may be joined by commissioners remotely as well. Next order of business is the approval of minutes. We have the minutes from October 31st, 2024 to approve.
I move
We have Commissioner Reese moves, Commissioner Yearwood seconds. Any discussion? Hearing, move to discuss, we have all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, hearing none. The minutes approval passes. Next, we have the approval of the audit resolutions, the 2024 final determinations. If there's no objections, I'd like to take them as a bundle. Can we read the approval? Actually, first, do we have a motion to approve?
I move. So moved.
We have so moved by Commissioner Reese, seconded by Commissioner Yearwood. If we can read all the motions into the record.
So we have resolution number 2024 AP/277-021 (2024) Office of Administrative Tax Appeals. Resolution number 2024 AP/277-740 Department of Education. Resolution number 2024 AP/277-226 (2024) New York City Commission on Human Rights. Resolution number 2024 AP/277-132 (2024) Independent Budget Office. Resolution number 2024 AP/277-996 (2024) New York City Housing Authority, and resolution number 2024 AP/277-054 (2024) Civilian Complaint Review Board.
I move they be approved.
Yeah, we have, you moved and Commissioner Yearwood seconded.
Yeah.
They just read it into the record. Now, any questions or comments? So, and I know from my own edification, I know I ask every time. So these are 6 agencies that we were awaiting corrective actions on, right? And they cured correction action since, and now we're submitting a determination resolution for them.
So not this section. So for this one is the ones where we did issue our final determination after the preliminary, but they still have a few corrective actions that they need to implement.
So
They're entering a monitoring phase, yeah.
And I think it was with these resolutions, the title for them still say something of that these audits are on or regarding underutilization.
Yes.
But when I read like everything in terms of what was audited or monitored, I mean, what audited again, it seemed like the title underutilization, there was a disconnect in my mind, and maybe it's not the appropriate time to speak about it. You could let me know, but there was a disconnect in my mind because I didn't necessarily see any prompts that gets to any issue of underutilization.
So, I mean, we can talk more later if you would like, but there are specific standards sectioned out for underutilization. So there's about 4 or 5 that a little more speak directly toward underutilization in different aspects. So we have one just making sure they're doing a general review regarding underutilization to identify it. And then we have another standard to see, are they doing things specifically in terms of recruitment pertaining to titles where there's underutilization. And then we also have 2 standards that separate out what they're doing as far as assessing selection for both, one standard related to discretionary titles and one related to civil service titles.
Okay, so maybe I just there were like these 4 of the standards within the whereas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's other standards that aren't directly related to underutilization. So it's not only or about underutilization, but there are those standards that do focus
So I
on
think
that.
it was 16 standards, right?
So there's 20
And the majority, like over 16 have
Yeah,
been doing.
yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm just curious as to where are we with our numbers?
Yes, so, I mean, I
Another
could,
agenda
yeah, I was
item.
gonna say, there's a.
There is an agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on this or comments? All right, all in favor of approving the 2024 final determination resolutions in section 3, subsection A, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we have B, 2024 compliance resolutions, of which we have none, right?
Yeah,
So, okay, we move on to subsection C, 2024 final determinations and compliance resolutions. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Reese, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Yearwood.
Yeah.
Can you please read the motions into the record?
Okay, we have resolution number 2024 AP/277-025-2024 C23, New York City Law Department, and resolution number 2024 AP/277-462-2024 C24, Gutman Community College.
Thank you. Since there's been a motion and a second, do we have any comments or questions? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Chair, I just wanted to draw the distinction between what you saw in A and what you're seeing in C. C is the same as A, where there's a final resolution, final determination, but it's also, they completed their compliance. So they are moving through this process without having any corrective actions to do.
So we made the audit finding, they made a response, and then we accepted their response as compliant.
Correct.
Yep. Next we have subsection 4, old business.
What is it? What's our number?
Oh.
I can say there's still the other.
You could do that.
item.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
You could address that.
Okay, so right now we have 24 compliance resolution for the year. And yeah, so we have 24 compliance resolutions.
And we out of 24 out of 34,
36.
Yeah, like,
36.
yeah, it's roughly like 35, 36. is what
36
we're
is our
trying to aim
number, I
for.
believe.
Yeah.
So we're low on,
Yeah,
but you could in January have the 6 that are sitting here, right?
yeah.
Would get you to 30.
Yeah. And we have 2 or 3 that they're responsive to do this week that are kind of close, but I want to say for sure they would be in compliance.
Okay.
So we definitely come January would have a few for sure.
So is there a reason that we won't meet our quota?
So I mean, we've talked about this briefly during some meetings, but we started the year with only 1 program analyst. We didn't have a full team until almost midway through the year. We also lost our administrative audits and executive services. So there's been a couple of issues with SurveyMonkey. There's just a couple of things.
But we will,
But we will get
We
that.
will, but I assume that it will be put in the annual report so that there is some affirmative statement as to why the number is lower than it should be.
well, our goal is to make sure that our final determinations are completed by this year. And because that's what the comptroller's office is holding us to,
Right.
this calendar year. So between today and the end of this year, which is the 31st, we expect to have all the final determinations done. So we should be okay on that score. Now, at the next meeting that we have, we'll have a bunch of resolutions for you to go through, and we'll have more compliance resolutions. But our concern right now is really to make sure that we get the final determinations done this year.
Whether or not someone will be under monitoring.
What's the final determination? So you're talking about A.
Yes.
Okay, you're talking about A, but if you take A as a number and add it to 24, you only get 30, so you're still under the 36.
Yeah.
And the 36, which is a number that we deal with, because it's just a mathematical number based on the charter's requirement that every 4 years,
Right.
we see the agency. So all I'm saying, I think it requires an affirmative statement in our annual report as to why we are missing it, and that it is work-related, and it was workplace
But
related.
I think with Virginia's thing, we'll have the other 6 to get to the 36 by December 31st.
No, we won't, we have 30.
We'll have any other final determination that has not been issued thus far, that will be issued by December 31st.
Okay, so will that bring us to the 36 or? Because we're doing these today, so we're up to technically 30.
So,
Or you
The
already
compliant-
counted these as part of the 24?
yes, well, not these 6, no, are not part of the 24. So with the compliance resolution numbers, those incorporate any agency that achieves compliance within that calendar year. So for instance, last year we had 61, like well over, because we had some spillover from the prior year. Whereas in terms of getting the final determinations out, that is more so based on all the agencies that are being audited under that current audit plan year only. So sometimes the overall compliance resolution number will definitely vary as opposed to the amount of agencies we audited for that audit plan year for that reason. Because if we have agencies that achieve compliance, so for example, there will be definitely several agencies that achieve compliance next year from this year's audit
Right,
plan.
understood.
So we will definitely have more than, 30 compliance resolutions next year, kind of like we had the prior year, where we had 61. Not that it won't be 61, but we'll have more than the 36 for next year.
I understand. I would add that into your explanation that the prior year had X number in excess. So that it does, I'm just trying to deal with explaining how we're not meeting the mandate this year. We had too many last year. And probably the year before that, we didn't have too many, but we won't go there. We had too many last year. We're meeting it. We are shy this year, and we probably will meet it next year.
Well,
And
I just want to.
It's not a criticism.
No, I'm just.
But
We're shy for good reason.
But we're not going to meet, we will meet the mandate. That's the
what I was
thing.
trying to
Will
get
be-
at.
you want it in 36?
If the mandate is not the 36, the mandate is the final determinations. That's the mandate.
No, the mandate in the charter is once every 4 years,
Yes.
seeing a quarter of the agency.
Right, and when the comptroller's office
That's
changed the
different.
way that we view things, because they said,
That's different. That's your audit, not the charter. Those are two different,
Oh, she's talking
unfortunately,
about
those are two
What we
different
do,
things.
and then the commission as a whole, is that?
Can you clarify, you clarify your point, and then we'll go back to you to clarify your
Yeah.
point.
yeah, my point is that when the comptroller's office criticized the EEPC several years ago, and they said it doesn't, they're not concerned about when the compliance resolution happens. They're more concerned about when the final determination happens, because they said that's when the audit ends, at the final determination. And the compliance monitoring piece, which we're allowing 4 months to complete, can spill over into the subsequent year. They're not concerned about that. They're more concerned about what is the date of the final determination.
I understand that.
And they want that date to begin and end within the calendar year.
They want that date to end in 2020. Yes.
So to begin in the calendar year and to end in the calendar.
I
And
understand.
then for your point, Commissioner Reed, you're saying that the charter says what different?
The charter says that once every 4 years, each commission is to be audited. Forget about the audit of the controller right now. We view the process as not only the final determination, which still could have open things that need to be dealt with. We view it as being the end of compliance. So we view our task as being not only auditing to find out what you did wrong, but to see that you've corrected what you did wrong, and that's our role. Our role, we view our role as being the totality of those acts. And therefore, that has, and we're dealing with two different animals. The controller's analysis of what they view, and there was arguments about that with the prior executive director, and Sharice did not agree with the manner in which they looked at our activities, because she viewed our activities as I understand them and have just explained it. Now, to the extent you can explain this in the annual report if you'd like, which is a paragraph. We have met the controller's audit demands. However, as to the way we look at the process, our number is shy. Last year, our number was in excess. We don't know what our number will be next year, but you just explain it. I am not being critical one way or the other. I'm just trying to make sure that we are, believe it or not, consistent to ourselves. And I continue to believe that it's not just finding out what's wrong, which is really what the controller does with great regularity, pointing out what's missing, what is wrong with this contract. But that's not us. What we are about is making sure that the employees are protected, and therefore making sure that the actions that to protect them are completed, and that so that there really is an EO officer in this particular agency. It could be a reason that they need to have compliance. They need to hire an EO officer. That happens from time to time. Isn't that one of the reasons why they're out of compliance? Or the EO officer hasn't been trained?
Yeah, that is one of the.
I want to understand if there's differences in the distinction. So one standard is that the EEPC begins the audit of a city agency, right? And that we determine to begin that audit of a city agency based on the fact that it's once every 4 years. So that's how they fall into that bucket. Roughly comes out to 36, right? And one way that we're judged by is that we begin the audit in a calendar year, and it goes through the process, whatever that process is, and that the final determination is issued within that calendar year, right? So that's one definition, right? Another definition is that we begin an audit, right? And the audit is, as far as our work, the audit is completed at the end of compliance of the monitoring period, whether or not they've complied.
What do you mean whether?
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no.
so if they got a determination of non-compliance or partial compliance,
Right.
technically that would still be the end of that
Yeah.
audit based on, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's the.
And on that rubric, we meet or exceed because we're in control of when we started it. And we start them all within the calendar year.
Right.
The monitoring phase kicks in pretty much before the calendar year ends. And whether or not they complied or not, we're not being held subject to that in terms of the standard, because we issued and they just not complied or they complied.
Right.
So our numbers under that standard could are potentially higher because we're not awaiting compliance as a final determination.
Now I see that would be lower because unless you have final determinations by July for everybody, then because you've got to start a 4-month compliance monitoring period, possibly extending it up to 6 months, unless those final determinations are not completed by the middle of the year, then you're not going to make it. You may not make it because you cannot guarantee that every agency is going to be finished with their compliance monitoring period.
And that's the standard that you're going on.
Yeah.
The charts and this, and then the controller's auditing standard, and it is more akin to the third standard that I see is where you begin the audit. There's a determination, right, for corrective action or not. If not, then it goes into the bucket that's applying determination. If there is, then there's the monitoring period, and they have to be cured or corrected and then not until, then we are for the final determination. And then that goes back to the definition of the controller.
No,
Well,
the
the
controller
con-
stops at the controller stops
Sorry,
earlier. The controller doesn't care about compliance.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, basically.
Hi.
We've been joined by Commissioner Alcantara, the record show. So,
Yeah, so under the comptroller's standard or their recommendation was pretty much at 8. So once we issue the final determination, whether or not there is still items to be monitored for, that we've audited the agency at that point. Like the monitoring period is looked at as a separate, it's not looked at as purely part of the audit in that sense, based on a comptroller standard. And what Commissioner Reese was saying would incorporate the totality of the monitoring period. So as Jean mentioned, there's a standard monitoring period of 4 months, sometimes potentially up to 6 months if they request it. And then even in other cases, an agency may request even more time. So we've had monitoring periods sometimes exceed even 6 months. So that's what makes it harder to have all of the compliance resolutions within a calendar year, because that's outside of our control. It means not to implement anything until the 6 month, and then.
and of those two standards, which is the one, for lack of a better word, that you keep your eye on more, or that you feel is a barometer of how the EPC is performing?
Yeah, so we've kind of fallen into line with the controller's office's definition, because, it actually works a little bit better for us in terms of getting the final determinations out during the calendar year. And as, getting to the point about the 4-year audit cycle, they will be audited within 4 years of those final determinations.
Which is akin to the audit, to the charter language.
Yes, yeah, well, they have to be audited every 4 years.
And you read into the charter language that the intent was they need to be audited,
Well,
corrected,
I'm
monitored, and cured.
I'm looking at the completion number and just saying that the completion number from my
Charter
perspective
language.
includes the compliance. Includes compliance, because that's, when you look at our scope of work is more than just finding out what's wrong. Our scope of work is trying to cure what is wrong. So if you don't report on it, or we don't count in our reports, where does it go? I mean, I just don't.
I don't know, it's about.
I don't know where it goes. So I'm happy to, and I'm talking about the annual report because I think we have to report to whoever may read it, what's going on and how we're meeting our standard. I have always interpreted the standard, the meeting of the 36, as being the complete audit and determination and compliance. If the controller reads it differently, that's fine. This is according to the standard that the controller has set forth. This is what the result is. And according to what we perceive as being our mission, this is what the result is. I'm happy with with those being two separate sentences. Yeah. But I think as we say this is what our mission is, we should explain that we believe our mission is discovering what needs to be changed. I hate saying urged, but what needs to be changed and the completion of that recommended change.
Yeah, and I think it's both fine, and I don't want to speak for Commissioner Yearwood, but I know in terms of her background in public administration and other fields, it's important for the commissioners, right, to set what our standard is. And since we to echo Commissioner Reese, I mean, you can be concerned about inputs, outputs, outcomes, right. And we're concerned about the outcome.
Right.
So while some of this is inputs and outputs, we want to make sure that we keep the eye on the ball in terms of the outcome of agencies curing, and providing and complying with corrective actions, which then, as the logic model says that we feel that there's attuned to fair equal, equal practices around hiring and other things. But so for the commission, I think we need to continue to report out on both of them. We're audited by the controllers on one, so
Right.
that happens automatically. But that in terms of the spirit of the charter language and in terms of the commissioners, why many of us even dedicate our time to serve in this regards, that we want the outcome, we want the change, and we want the accountability and compliance.
Right,
Commissioner
but the
Hewitt?
only thing is that, I mean, as Malik said, the monitoring period, like
It's
that's
outside
kind
of our
of,
control.
yeah, it's just not within our control. So I don't feel like we should be measured by something that's not within our control. But because we can't control, like during the monitoring period, when they decide to actually get into compliance, which could take more time than the calendar year.
Commissioner Reese?
Yeah, but the converse to that, if you will, is that if we had more people in category C, so as you continue doing a 4-year turnaround, and in some cases, because of other problems, you go back in 2 years later, and you will do that on some of them. So if we get more that come in and do determination and compliance at the same sense, I would view that as absolute success, because they understood what we were doing. They understood it from when we were there last time, and this time around, there was no monitoring period because they weren't in compliance. So if that number grew, I would think we were incredibly successful.
Yeah, it's fascinating. To what extent can part of our performance metrics be linked to an agency not complying? That's doesn't like what Commissioner Yu was saying. So it's a matter of how to reframe and reorient that number to either indicate, that either agencies are doing worse over time complying, or
And that makes actually makes the case for us needing some kind of enforcement. Like we have no enforcement.
We have no enforcement. I've been there for years.
It's like,
Hello.
would it go?
Not only do we not have enforcement, we have some people that don't want to even commit to having us to being audited, EDC for one. I mean, and
this is
crazy.
This is one of those areas we're having our agency council.
Yes.
It's an added perspective and added expertise in this regard. So,
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for that. Next, we have an old business subsection 8, the status of the EEPC personnel, hirings and promotions.
Yeah, I wanted to say we have 2 categories of employees here in this rubric. We have our internal employees who have gotten to see some promotions. Menelik Alsop is now our director of audits. Also,
I hope you're happy.
you don't see Menelik smile often, so.
I know, that's why I asked the question.
We also want to
It depends though, because we won't talk about it here, but we've all been in situations where you get promotions without a salary bump. So,
Right.
That determines how big the smile is.
Right.
That always determines how big the smile is.
I wasn't asking that.
I know.
You start trouble. The chairman.
So we were also able to move Nika DeCall up to manager of audits to assist Menelik in that regard. And lastly, we were able to move Mike up from manager to director of finance and human resources. So we had 3 in-house promotions. And as far
Ladders
as,
are good.
yes.
The ladders are very good.
So externally, we had 4 official positions and, the 1 part-time executive agency counsel. On the research side, they've interviewed a number of candidates to select 2. And they did select 2. We've pushed them through and we're waiting for OMB approval on them. We had one, the backfill for the administrator of audits and executive services that's sat at the front desk. We did select a candidate for that as well, and we're waiting for OMB approval. We selected we're in the process of finalizing the selection on an EEO program analyst. And then we should have that finished by the end of this week. And we'll be moving those through as a package with OMB for approval. And we've also selected a part-time executive agency counsel, and we're waiting for approval from that.
So what would your total number of employees be at the end of this all?
16.
16, which I think is probably the most that the EEPC has ever had.
Yes, I believe so.
And that's the result of some of the work we did last year on the budget. So that's good. Hopefully. Just takes a while, right?
Yes.
It does take a while.
Director Freddy, how do you feel about your, the people you've interviewed and the prospects of having additional talent join your team?
The two candidates are both very strong. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to bring them on quickly, but they're very strong candidates. So I'm looking forward to it.
Were there particular skill sets above others you were looking for, or things that, you know, how you maybe like people see the survey capacity or labor economics or this or that or the third, like just curious.
One of them has a fairly extensive background in employment related issues in New Jersey. So they will probably bring a pretty strong substance and content and knowledge to that. The other one does not have as strong of a background in that area, but has very strong quantitative coding and data analysis skills. So I think in that regard too, they'll complement each other pretty well. So I think it's a good combination.
They'll complement the team you already have.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
At the record show, we've been joined by Commissioner Okaru.
Hello, Ngozi.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, etc. Sorry to not be with you. I'm filming today.
Wow, she's a ventriloquist. Her lips didn't even move. Man. She didn't speak.
I think there's a delay.
Oh, they clearly said there's a delay.
All right. Well, welcome. Next, we have the drafted EEO Officers Handbook.
Yes,
That would be Director Jim Victor.
Yes, I wanted to give you a status update on that. I was hoping to have that completed by this meeting, but unfortunately we've had so much going on this month and last month that I wasn't able to complete it, but I wanted to give you a status update on where we were with it. I had put together a draft that I'm still working on, but just to give you an idea of some of the contents of the draft, I'm looking at a section on definitions and abbreviations. I put together an outline of a model EEO program. I put together a summary of the city's EEO policy. I've started, setting forth the EEPC's audit process, and what documents would be annually required for EEO officers. I want to include, I have not done this yet, but I want to include a section on personal information and the disclosure of it and why it's important not to do that. And maintenance of EEO records. I will have the audit standards put in for the officers so that they know what the standard is. Or say, for example, post a copy of the policy and how often you have to do that and how you should do that.
A dumb question. You mean DCAT does not have a handbook for their EO officers?
They have the policy for the city policy, and they do have a handbook, but it's not really going into what we're looking for in the audit. It's more looking at the policy.
I just think perhaps there ought to be some coordination with DCAS before you go finish it. So that we can look at it being complementary, and so in fact, if I had my druthers, DCAS would be distributing it rather than we were distributing it, because I guess they're in charge of the EO officers. Isn't that where
Yes, they are.
Yes.
But they know that I'm working on
You have
this.
like a team.
No,
of
no,
people,
no, understood.
or at least give them feedback, right?
So when I just spoke to DCAS this last week about it, and I said that as soon as we have the content in a better form, we'll send that over to them and they're going to look at it. So they're prepared for that.
Oh, I understand. It would be lovely if they were combined and distributed at the same time. And if we were a portion of that, if we could figure out some way to be online or to welcome them as part of
I mean, at the very least, this will be a resource for our website as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Anything else on that?
Now, good work and a good
Yeah.
thought, and thank you very much for the labor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have subsection C, agencies to be added to next year's audit.
Yes, so at our last meeting, I enclosed 2 letters, one to the Mayor's Office of Contract Services and one to SCI, the special investigator on the Department of Education side. I've sent those letters out, telling them that they're going to be included in next year's audit. And then we subsequently, Menelik and I had a conversation with the Mayor's Office based on Commissioner Reese's recommendation that we should be looking at some of the agencies there. And we had a good conversation about that. It seemed that there are some agencies that are spinning off from the Mayor's Office's numbers. So we audited the Mayor's Office last year in 2023. They were included in those numbers, but they are now spinning off into their own separate entities, and we will capture them as well.
Okay,
We'll capture them as separate agents.
so I'm sorry I'm adding to your workload. Which probably adds to our numbers. At some point, we ought to figure out what our total numbers are and whether 36 still makes it.
Well, we audited a total of 143. Right. 143.
That'll be it. That number will be added. That number will increase.
Right.
Okay. Next we have subsection D, EEPC audit standards.
Right. So we talked at the last meeting about looking at the audit standards and, working with Russell on that particular project to kind of see which audit standards generated more corrective actions than others. I also wanted to put together a list for you of all the audit standards and when was the last time we audited against those standards. So in the process of putting that together, it's kind of a big job, the way we keep our information. So we're trying to have that for you as soon as we can.
What's the best way to keep that information? That's, retrievable.
The way it is now is not the worst, so it's workable. So there are things to do. You'd have to talk to people that use it. The system is a little bit clunky from everything I've heard from people that use it. From a data perspective, it can be worked with, but the idea is to just try to streamline analyses and then do something where you can kind of regenerate it. So, this is something, it also depends in terms of the best way to store it. It depends on what is the primary purpose of it. Oftentimes when you have users using something for reporting standards, that's not always the best way from a data perspective how to do it too. So,
Do you need new software to streamline it?
From our perspective, it would probably be easier, but we can work with what's there. I would assume the software and the programs that are used, that's more on the analysts, and that the priority should be whatever's easiest for them to use. And then on our end, we'll do what we can with what we have.
Like when you need numbers, they give them to you through CSV file or.
Right, exactly. It's a CSV. The bigger issue is that trying to sort of understand the historical changes of things. A lot of the institutional knowledge, I guess, is left in the last few years because a lot of people have left. So I would actually say probably as we're digging into it, it's more sort of the institutional knowledge is the bigger hiccup than the technology, I think.
A different perspective for a moment. It seems to me that DoIT created that, I'm going to say a good 6 or 7 years ago, and maybe even longer than that, because I'm now, unfortunately, as I age, things get mixed up in time. It could be as many as 8 or 10 years ago. It's probably time to look at whether or not it could be updated, for want of a different term. looked at both for ease of use and input person and also for the data. And probably, although it's more work for Mother, it probably makes some point, Jean, for somebody to spend time, a couple of days, just analyzing it and seeing if it could be made more efficient, which is the term I would use. More user-friendly, efficient, whatever. Whether you need do it to get involved, again, I cannot answer. I assume they are still in the software business. They take a while to do anything, and you probably are not going to be a high priority. So putting that aside, it may be something that you could do in-house or figure out how to make the modifications by yourself.
I've actually had some of those conversations with both Menelik and with Suwat. Suwat has a lot of talents, so we're hoping that he can help us to streamline a little bit. I think for me, the hardest thing is when, like, if you look at our documents and you look at the corrective actions that we list, each agency has a corrective action. They may have 5 corrective actions, right? One will be different for this agency, then will be different for this agency. And it's hard to figure out, like, you'd have to, for me, I'd have to manually go through and find which corrective action is the same in each one, because the numbers are different. It's so the numbers are, the corrective actions don't have a unique number assigned to them. They're just a number in the actual document.
It may well be that some of with using it over the number of years, you now know the things that ought to be altered.
Right.
To make them easier for manipulation, easier for reporting on it. And that's it. It's almost as though you take a yellow pad and write down the problems and then see whether or not they can be corrected in any manner. But all I'm saying is, having been here for a long time, I know the pain in creation. That doesn't mean you shouldn't look at the baby who's now 7 years old and figure out how she could read and write better.
Yes, indeed.
Commissioner review, okay. Next, we go to board meetings. Well, is that it?
Yes.
Next, we go to board meetings scheduled for 2025. Wow, we're there already, huh? 2025, so the schedule's before you. There's 7 meetings scheduled in total. And it was done to meet some of the requirements or suggestions made at the last meeting around the summer and some other requests. And I think it looks pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right now, it looks fine. Who knows?
Commissioner Okaru, Commissioner Alcantara, have you had a chance to see the dates for 2025?
They look okay
Yeah.
to me so far. Like, Elaine says, it looks great.
Yeah, I'm gonna put.
Yeah, I saw them and I responded, so it's good.
You're putting them in hard copy and hope nothing changes.
I'm gonna put them in my calendar.
Yeah. I'm gonna put them in my calendar, but I think there's a way for you guys to calendar them for us as well, right?
Oh, yeah, usually you do. If that can happen sooner rather than later, because I'll put it in my work calendar as well, which is why I've been able to, I can at least, even if I'm via WebEx, I can pay attention because.
So I'll send them out as hold the dates.
Yep.
Okay.
Those are the dates.
Yeah, I'll put them.
And the next section item, I think we went through already, audit update, 2024 audit plan status updates, is that correct?
Yeah, so we pretty much covered.
We covered that, right?
Yeah.
Next, we have research updates. Director Petty.
We went over we didn't do the EEPC conference for 2025.
Oh, pardon me, I thought,
Yeah.
I skipped over the EEPC conference 2025. Is that Jean Victor?
Yes. So, based on a conversation that you and I had about preparing for a conference for early next year at some point, looking at the purpose would be to look at the kind of the historical background behind the EEPC and how it came to be and who was involved, and working with Commissioner Reese on that, working also with Russell on that. the idea is to find at least 1 or 2 or 3 people who were around at that time who could speak to that.
Well, we know two, and we hope, I don't know what the status of Rich Schwartz these days, but my guess is that he was instrumental in doing it. And he is at the Brennan Center. If he's still probably involved in it, if he's fine, I don't know whether he's fine or not. He's born in 1935, which means, thank you very much, he's 89 years old. What the state of being at 89 is, I don't know. I'll try to find out if I can. But my assumption is if you call the Brennan Center, they probably will tell you whether he's able to be part of the conference.
So this is kind of like conference / 36th anniversary. And it's kind of like blue sky thinking right now. We might even, you mentioned, this individual, is Frederick Schwartz, you mentioned?
Fred Schwartz,
Yeah.
great, Fred Schwartz, yeah.
As the EPC commissioners, we can think of even as an award to someone, if we wanted to do an award to several people, right? That makes sense for an EEPC to honor in this regard. So like any kind of thinking around this regard would be great. It even makes sense, maybe an award of whoever was most helpful this last year around in terms of, there's people done some heavy lifting for us, whether we know it or not. So that might be a possibility.
To the commission, to the city council.
So yeah, maybe to the commission, to a council member at the
Right.
city council, and So that's
So like the agency who was maybe most cooperative or something. Or,
yeah.
yeah, I like that.
So maybe 3
So
awards, 3
competition.
categories. Right?
You know,
I'm gonna send out.
One of the agencies that gets it and was not,
Right, that's like,
constantly, right.
right.
We
Even,
have,
even if like
It's New York City Law Department, right?
Right.
Final determination and compliance with resolution.
we could do one that was, I guess, most compliant or least amount of corrective actions.
Right.
And then the one that was most cooperative to show like even if they had corrective actions, they were eager, to remedy
Understand.
and
Russell mentioned, I think Commissioner Reese mentioned like institutional knowledge and all that, and the database and the data set, but is there a way for like the EPC more easier than not, like over the course of the last 10 years, which agency has been most consistent? If it's because it's every 4 years, so let's say over the last 12 years, which agency has been most consistently, stellar in this regard, right? But there was ways where we could rank the data in a certain way.
The data we have online only goes back to the previous 2 audit cycles. So this one, the one before, which was the sexual harassment one, and the one before that, which was also the workforce practices one.
That's probably because that's when the software was.
Right,
developed.
exactly.
So
So,
Is that 12 years?
it's 12 years?
well, it's 3 audit
Okay.
cycles. So yeah, if you were to do this one out to the end of the cycle, then yeah, that's 12 years.
12 years. That's about when it was developed, right?
I believe it goes to the beginning of the cycle, although I cannot confirm
Would
that yet.
there be a way to know like which agencies had final determination without corrective actions right off the bat?
Yeah, that wouldn't be too hard to
Well,
figure out.
How about honoring the one who's permitted us to do the pilot?
Yeah, that's an idea.
What's an idea?
Idea, but,
And then you could report on it and use it as a model.
Let's roll it around.
Yeah.
We got some time.
yeah, to the extent that, we'll talk about it. I mean, to the extent that there's pseudonyms, delimited, stuff like that, but we'll, that's an idea. Anyone else? And I'll send out some correspondence in this regard too.
I do have a PS to that. I had repressed his name, so I apologize for that. But the general counsel of the second charter revision,
Eric Lane, is that him?
yes,
He's at
It's
Hofstra.
still alive
He's at Hofstra.
and he's still around.
Yeah.
And he will certainly talk about it and take credit.
So I reached
Take credit for the EPC.
Probably.
I reached out to Pauline Toole, who was a staff member, I think of both. So there's two. There's one thing I learned. There was the first one and started
Yeah, but Dick
'86.
Ravitch unfortunately is deceased.
Right. And then there's the second one, which is
Right,
the one that actually did the
which is
EEPC, which
Bridgeport.
is Bridgeport. So Pauline Toole was a staff person. She's currently the commissioner
Doris.
of Doris. So she was a staff member on them, and according to her, the two people that are probably the best to talk to are Fritz Schwartz, depending on, as you indicated. And then somebody who wasn't on the commission, but was a DC 37 rep, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Carol O'Clarican, who was either general counsel or lead of research for DC 37, and apparently was involved in the conversations that led to it. She seems to still be around as far as I can tell, and has been on various boards and organizations. And then Eric Lane. I think those would be the three people, plus Pauline herself.
Can you send this to me?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's
Absolutely.
some good investigative work there. I didn't know about.
So I didn't even know there were the two commissions. She had to tell me, because you look online, you only see the one from '86, and it's harder to find the stuff on the second one that came about with Fritz.
86 or 89?
The first one was established by Mayor Koch, I believe, in '86, or at least it started its work in '86, and that
then
ran until
Ravitch had to
'88.
leave because he runs.
He runs for mayor, right?
Right, and he doesn't do very well. Dick was at one point the lieutenant governor under Patterson.
And that's what the EPC was.
Came about under the second one,
In 89.
the second iteration, yeah, in '89, yeah.
That's what-
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Now you were, now we're to you with research update pilot project.
Yeah, so the pilot program report, I think is in a good place. It's with Jean because we want her to review it closely and then meet with the team to give feedback so that we can develop a good draft. But I think we've got it in a pretty good place where the findings and the methodology are something that could be useful for the city as a whole to understand how you kind of look into these things. And hopefully the findings and recommendations sections for the agency specifically are things that they will find useful, as they indicated in the conversation that we had with them when we presented to them, and that they can take action on. So I think it's in a pretty good place, and hopefully we'll have a draft that we can share with you not too far in the future.
Going back to the conference, and I would try finding a way, maybe it's giving the award or finding a way to utilize the pilot project within that conference, because it's not only what we've done and what we've been created, but what else we could do. And the pilot program is that next step. It's how you take our findings and go internalize it and figure out a way to go forward with it and create a better atmosphere for employees. I mean, that's really part of what we're doing, is creating a better work atmosphere, dealing with it. And so I would try to find a way for incorporating it and announcing it, if you will, to the body politic as part of that conference, Alden. And clearly it's up to all of us to agree, and also up to them to agree to the publicity.
I was going to say, and encouraging the other agencies to volunteer for this.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's why I would utilize it within that conference. I mean, it's announcing something they didn't know about, showing and being able with the report to show how
It can be
it
useful.
is helpful and useful, and then trying to encourage others to participate. So, and it works. It works with how we were created, what we do now, and what we could do in the future.
So this would be in person, the conference.
Yes. And, conference might be a strong word, and maybe reception, right? We have to figure that out. Next, we have the status of local law 13 reports.
That's with DCAS. They're supposed to get us their comments back on Friday. That report will look the same as it largely has in the previous couple of years, although there'll be some changes to the recommendations. But that's the one we're kind of trying to just get out each year and just showing trends and all of that. So hopefully it won't be anything too surprising or unexpected.
Are there any areas where it's improved? Are there places where you can show that there is actually improvement in the hiring and the placement and where people are employed, or is it static?
The top line numbers are mostly the same. They change a little bit each year, but there is some fluctuation within. So the police department was doing pretty well for a while, the police officers, although that's, not as good as what it was before. And there are some individual agencies. I'm hoping with the addition of the new personnel that we can do deeper dives into agencies that maybe from year to year have changed the most. I still want to keep this report as sort of the big top line report where we can look at the city as a whole. But in terms of what you're talking about, to where there are some changes under the surface year to year, I would hope that in the next couple of years we can dig into that more.
Thank you. Next, we have a motion to adjourn. We have a motion by Commissioner Reese, seconded by Commissioner Alcantara. All in favor to adjourn a public session for the purposes of going to executive session to discuss budgetary matters. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions. Hearing none,
Would
the
they-
motion passes. We will now be exiting public session and go into executive session.
It's only that they have.
Will they send
You
us
have
a
a new-
new link?
Yeah, we have a new link. You have a new link to join.
Okay.
Did